also set aside the rest of the rocker because we're going to make the outer rocker after we have some of these inner pieces done. The next thing I want to make is the back wall. This is the wall going up from the floor where the seats are to the floor where the bed is. I want to make this back wall piece, which is just going to be essentially a wedge with one bend in it, and we'll leave enough flange that we can fit it to the truck. And then the third piece we'll make will be this box. And well, I don't even know if we'll make that third, but we'll make that separate from the wall. So let's go ahead and get the wall made, figure out what we need there. Alright, now that was a really quick one to make. Cut it out, put one bend in it. I have that piece pretty much intact. And now it's not going to be a perfect fit. We're still going to have to go in there, put it in the truck, probably do some sanding and grinding to get it to fit exactly. Point here is this flange that came off the floor, or out of the floor. It's 5/8 down here and 3/4 and then 1 inch and back, and I just made a whole flange 1 inch. So this will get laid in there, and then we'll crawl under the truck and scribe it, and then come back and sand or grind down to that edge or cut it, whatever makes the most sense. If that gets that, you know, ready to go, start being fit to the truck. And then the next piece we need to make or come up with is this brace and body mount. Like I said, I kind of really want to use just a piece of square tubing or rectangular tubing. One of the things we got though is this thing comes up and then it has a saddle for that body mount and then goes on again. So if you look there, you can pretty well see the gap. I don't know if that was intentional or if that has been just wear over the years. It kind of seems like it would be intentional so that this would be flat since this is on a slope. So we're probably going to try and duplicate that, at least somewhat. But what I'm thinking I want to do is just, this is 1 3/4 by 1.5 inches. So really, if I had 1 3/4 square tube, we could essentially weld it to the back side of this, and it would be essentially all we need. I think we could just use 1 3/4 by 1 3/4 square tube, maybe come up, cut it, put the jog in it, put the jog back and keep going, and then we'll drill a hole and put a sleeve in there so you can't crush it. So let me see if I've got any 1 3/4. We need about 27 inches. Okay, well I didn't have any 1 3/4 square tube, but I did have some 1.5 inches, and I believe this is 14 gauge, so it's dead on the right width here. And then I have some 1/4 inch flat bar that's by 1.5 inches, and we can just weld that to the back or whatever, or weld them all together, and we'll get our 1 3/4 depth. So the next little trick I want to do is, coming off of one end, I want to figure out where this little saddle should be, and basically I'm going to cut. So the thing is, the beam is in line, so it's not like we can cut it, jog it, and come back, because then we'll be on two different runs. What we've got to do is essentially come in here, and I'm just eyeballing this for the most part. But we've got to come in and basically open this square tube up somewhere in there and there. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to slice, do a wedge slice, or we'll slice this end off and pull that piece of metal out. And then we're going to do the same thing on the top side, and we're going to push it in, and then we'll re-weld them to make that angle. I hope that makes sense. So the bottom flange is going to come down, top flange is going to go inside the tube, and it's only really about an eighth to 3/16 of an inch, so probably don't even have to make any filler pieces. We can probably just fill it with weld as we go. But let's see what I can do here. Okay, with that welded on there, I'm going to go ahead and cut the next one and pull it down. And in all honesty, I think if you looked at this, you could pretty easily say that just pulling the bottom one down would give you a nice parallel area for the frame body mount to sit on, and that this wouldn't be nearly, you know, the top one wouldn't be all that important. But well, I got one little hole right there I need to weld in. But it's not going to take an extra 10 minutes and we'll have it all done. What we can see is we have duplicated that flat. So one of the things we want to do now, I want to get a good marker. I always keep a couple of markers laying around. One that's got a real nice sharp point on it, and then the others that have already worn down. Because as you start drawing on stuff that is hot or corroded or whatever, it just tears up the tips. So I don't like to ruin the rest of them. So anyway, the next step, get these ends matched up, is to get the center of this hole. And then you need to know how far it is from the outside edge of this, which is just a hair over 1 inch. This is top. So it's this, and it's 1 inch in from the top, just a hair over. So it's dead on 1 inch. So that 1 inch mark is the center of that hole. So that lines up like that. And then we'll have our 1/4 inch plate out here to finish it. Okay, so the hole that was in the original was for a 7/16 inch bolt. So I dug around out in one of my bins and I found some tubing, which this happens to be stainless, but doesn't really matter. And I drilled a hole that will allow that just to slide in there. And a 7/16 bolt fits in there real nice. And the goal, there it goes, is we want that to be inside the tube, but to leave us enough room to actually weld it. Might have done it. That's pretty good. So I'm going to MIG weld that, and then we'll grind them flat again or flush, and then if need be we'll take a die grinder and clean up the hole a little bit. Okay, so that piece is basically done. We need to cut a piece of the flat bar, and while we've got the welder running, I'm going to run over and drill those holes for the plug welds, and we'll get this welded in. Here's that piece, drilled 3 holes. ungusset welded in. Run a quick bead down these sides. Yeah, and the only reason to do that, knock that top edge off, is as the outer rocker goes over that, you don't want that causing imperfections in there. We don't care about the inside edge. That's never going to be seen again after we weld this in. So that piece is done except for the final fitting to the actual truck. All right, before we go fit our first few pieces, I want to get this, which is part of that B-pillar. I want to get these two made. That's the outside face that would be behind the quarter panel, and then this is the edge. So that was fitting something like that, and then this fits this. They would have been kind of opposing each other. We're missing everything in between. So we'll kind of probably have to go back. This one I think we can make a pattern from what we have. This one I think we're gonna have to put this piece in and then make a pattern that comes to it. So we'll make one more piece, and it has a little curve to it. The curve doesn't really matter so much as long as we put some kind of angle on it, and get this and some of that other stuff welded in so we can, or fit, so we can start welding something in. Okay, well that one went pretty quick. Of course, it was just essentially a rectangle with a single bend in it. And then to get the curve in there, I have my shrinker and stretcher over here, and I simply put this side into the shrinker and shrink it down until the curve eyeballed, and to me, the same shape. So that ends up being it for that. It'll have to have some, grinding and sanding to fit it to the actual truck. But that piece can go in, and with that piece, once that piece is installed, then we can come back and make this other piece of the B-pillar, which I think goes something like that. So, but it's kind of hard to tell. This one's got a couple little flanges on it, and there are actually a couple of pieces of metal sandwiched together here, so we're not going to do any of the bolts. But I think for now it's time to go get this piece installed, and the piece we made for the floor and the little wall, get that all trimmed up and fit where we can, with magnets and everything, we know it is where it needs to be. So right now it's lunchtime, so I'm going to go eat some lunch, and we'll come back probably in the other shop to start fitting a few of these pieces. Okay, step one for getting this panel to fit is I clamped it in best I could, and then I took a fine tip Sharpie and I marked that upper line. And it doesn't matter whether you do the floor first or the wall first, but you got to pick one or the other and work on it first. Once it fits, then you can start shaping the, working on the other side. So I marked it. I'm going to take it back out now. And with it out, then I can use a grinder or a cutoff wheel, whatever I need, to fit it to this panel so that these can be welded together. And then we'll come back, clamp it back in place again, and start working on the floor side of it. Okay, now you can see pretty closely here. If you look, you can see the line that we've scribed or drawn all the way down. We're just gonna grind. It's not very much, so we're just going to use a grinder with a good flap disc on it, and we're going to bring it all the way down until that line just starts to disappear. Okay, now the panel is all in place. You can see we have a nice, even, real small gap up there at the top. And it's just clamped in two places. So now we need to start working the same thing on the bottom. And what I've got is one panel laid over the other, so I can come back and scribe. And I'm going to take material off the new panel to make it match the old panel. So we'll scribe from the bottom here all the way along until we have the same kind of black mark that we can grind away up to. So let me mark that and get it done. Okay, so we now have a nice fit when you line everything up. Okay, so we have a nice fit here as well, all the way down. Just kind of see the gap there. So this piece is ready to be welded in. We just got to clean a little bit of this paint, other stuff off, so we have a good surface to weld to. So next up, I think we're going to go ahead and test fit the rib that goes across there and just see how that is fitting, so that we can hopefully just go ahead and weld it straight to the sheet metal before we put all this in place. And then we're doing a lot of our welding on a bench then, instead of overhead or trying to weld in on top of something in here and that kind of thing. So let me get the square tubing out. Okay, you can see it in place here now, and it fits really. If I bring it out to where there was a 1/4 inch gap behind it, it fits that transmission tunnel part really well. It's a little long on this end, which this is also where we've got to put the curve in it. So we've got a pretty good idea. We can just go straight to the sheet metal, maybe a little bit longer than this backing sheet metal, and we can put that curve on there, close this thing up, and then we can go ahead and do the parts on the outside out here. So let's go back to the other shop and put that curve in. And I ended up trimming this back just a little bit and doing a little work on this edge. Now it all lines up really nice, definitely weldable. I think it is a little long down here at the bottom, but we'll go ahead and get it tacked in before we go back out to the other shop, and then we'll come back and cut that off as we need to get the length right. That other piece that I wanted to make goes right here, and it welds down here from this edge and comes down. So this will give us the profile that it can then hook to. So let me get this one tacked in. All right, so we have the wall piece, wall and floor. We have our 1/4 inch bar, and we have our tube. And this is going to go on here. I'm going to use this tube, which is really very warm. We're going to clamp this down. We're going to use the tube as a flat place. Okay, so the bottom is even now, flush to the sheet metal side. So I'm going to put a couple of tack welds on it, and then we'll attach the square tube to it. Need to finish getting everything just exactly where I want it. Right about there. And then we'll come in and put some tack welds to the square tubing on both sides. And actually, since it's in place, I'll probably go ahead and stitch weld that on both sides, and then stitch weld to the sheet metal now as well, since I got a nice straight. So I didn't know how much of that welding you actually saw there, and me jumping around and everything. So I quit using this brand of weld-through primer quite a long time ago, and I was out of primer, or out of it, so I was looking around through the cabinet, and I had 1 can of primer, of weld-through primer. And I had totally forgotten why I quit using it. But what it is that, man, it just causes so much contamination, I guess. The welds just pop and splatter, and so you're getting burned constantly just from all the crap flying around. I don't know. You get it at your Napa store. I don't know if any of you guys ever use this stuff, but I'm not impressed. I have this last can, and I remember when I bought it, I bought probably a case, and I'm just not happy with it. So anyway, I'm going to get some other brands for the rest of this project. But this piece is done, so we can go ahead and get this installed and get the other couple little pieces that we were working with. So this was another one. This is for the inner rocker, of course. Well, I didn't realize it, but this gusset is supposed to attach to a lip seam, or what am I trying to say? A folded over seam that would have been right there on the original truck. Actually, it would have been on the floor side, on this side, on the short side over here. So something like that. And of course, I eliminated all of that. So I made, probably saw me make this, but I made a little L bracket that I can weld to the gusset, and then weld to the floor after everything's in place. So I'll do that with it. I think that's it for right now. We're going to take all this, go over to the truck, and start putting it together.